Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the spring campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. Last week, we ventured to the Miskatonic Museum, picked up 3 experience, and destroyed the Necronomicon. Thankfully, though, we ducked further trauma when the table was set for anything else going haywire, putting us into dangerous territory. We also upgraded the decks along with the tarot reading. Link to that will be in the description down below. So let's get into this week's scenario. We're going to hop on the Essex County Express. We'll actually start with reminding everyone what the tarot reading was, since that was relevant to changing the decks. On the good side, first up, we left the Hermit 9. Increase each investigator's maximum hand size by 3. Now, when I was talking about flipping that card, I actually messed up. The maximum hand size will end up... So first, the maximum hand size will end up being 11 instead of 8. But the mix-up came when I was talking about whether to flip that or not. The maximum hand size, if I would have flipped that to its bad side... We'll take a quick look at that. Flipping onto its bad side would have been decreasing each investigator's maximum hand size by 3. So the mix-up there was that I was a derp and couldn't do first-grade math. So maximum hand size in the game is normally 8 cards. Leaving it on its good side, we're going to increase that to 11. If I would have flipped that to the bad side, the maximum hand size would have been 5 instead of 2. So, given that I've already handled everything for flipping our bad card, I decided to just leave everything as is. So I already added, well, let's take a quick look at our bad card. So we flipped the Tower 16, which requires you to add 1 random basic weakness to each investigator's deck. Remove them after the game ends. Stella has an arm injury from that, and Daisy has amnesia. But anyway, while a 5-card hand would have been very manageable with Stella, Daisy has real potential to fly through her deck, which I wouldn't mind in this scenario, but I won't go into that until we get a little bit later into the scenario. But anyway, that minor rambling all aside, like I said, I already handled everything for flipping the Tower 16, so I'm not going to run the tarot reading back. But on that, next, let's go ahead and set the scene.
Scenario 3, the Essex County Express. Recent events in the museum have forced you to reevaluate Armitage's tale about Dunwich. It cannot be a coincidence. Wilbur Whately, the Necronomicon, the creature from Dunwich, and the people and creatures who attacked here in Arkham. Everything must be connected. You're certain now where you must head. The lonely and dismal town of Dunwich Village. You consider telling the Massachusetts State Police what you know, but the negative consequences outweigh the potential gain. Given the nature of your story, they would likely write your stories off as an absurd hoax. Worse, they could lock you up. After all, you are present in an illegal speakeasy, and you also trespass in the museum. Instead, you decide to head to Dunwich yourself in order to investigate further. You pack everything you think you might need and manage to get some rest for the night. In the morning, you head to the train station in Northside and purchase a last-minute express ticket. Dunwich is several hours by train northwest along the Miskatonic River Valley. There is no train station in Dunwich, but you manage to phone one of Armitage's acquaintances in the small village, a man by the name of Zebulon Whately, who was present during the events several months ago. Armitage's notes indicate that the Whately family is spread across many branches, some decadent and unscrupulous, others decayed or otherwise untouched by nefarious and diabolic rites. According to Armitage, Zebulon's branch of the family lays somewhere between the decayed and undecayed Whateleys, who knew the traditions of his ancestors, but were not corrupted by them. He agrees to pick you up at the closest station and drive you into town. As the train departs from Arkham, you feel the events of the previous night catching up to you, and exhaustion sets in. But before you can safely reach your destination, the train car suddenly rumbles and shakes, startling you out of your reverie. The train loudly skids to a violent halt, and you hear a rattling noise behind you.
And of course that rattling is nothing good. By the way, there was a slight typo, so when I was talking about the decayed, about the branches of the family, some decadent and unscrupulous, others undecayed or otherwise untouched by nefarious and diabolic rites. So just a small correction there from when I made the audio recordings. But anyway, coming back to our present-day scenario, we'll go back to Daisy as the lead investigator in this scenario, so let's go through their opening hands, starting with Daisy. So first up, we have a Hawkeye folding camera. 2 cost to play, will on commit. Reaction: after the last clue is discovered from your location, place 1 resource from the token pool on this card as evidence. Limit once per game at each location. While Hawkeye Folding Camera has 1 or more evidence, you get +1 will. 2 or more gets you +1 lore. 3 or more gets you +1 sanity. Then we have an Occult Lexicon. 2 cost to play, lore on commit. Limit 1 per deck. Forced: after Occult Lexicon enters play, search your bonded cards for 3 copies of Bloodright. Add 1 to your hand and shuffle the other 2 into your deck. When Occult Lexicon leaves play, find each of these copies of Bloodright, even if they're out of play, and remove them from the game, and it takes up a hand slot. Then we have a shortcut: 0 cost to play, will, and agility on commit. Fast: play only during your turn. Choose an investigator at your location, move that investigator to a connecting location. Eureka, which is a skill. Will, lore, and agility on commit. If the skill test is successful, the investigator performing the test searches the top 3 cards of the deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles her deck. Last up, and what will probably be our first action, Scroll of Prophecies. 3 cost to play, will on commit. Uses: 4 secrets. As an action, spend 1 secret, choose an investigator at your location. That investigator draws 3 cards, then discards 1. And I saw some probably dead stuff in the hand, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. Let's take a look at Stella's opening hand. First up, Stella has a copy of Take Heart, a skill test, max 1 committed per skill test. You may commit Take Heart to any type of test, and if the test fails, the performing investigator draws 2 cards and gains 2 resources. Then we have a baseball bat, 2 cost to play, combat on commit. As an action, fight. You get +2 combat for this attack, deal +1 damage, but if you reveal a skull or a tentacle, discard the baseball bat after the attack resolves, and it takes both hand slots. Oh, this thing does not want to... There we go. Mysterious Raven. 1 cost to play, lore on commit. As a fast action, discard Mysterious Raven and take 1 horror, discover 1 clue at your location, and it would actually be helpful to give Stella her starting resources. Normally I take care of all that overnight on the previous night, but I didn't today. Anyway. Then we've got Live and Learn. 0 cost to play, wildcard on commit. Fast, play after a skill test you failed ends, after resolving all effects from the failed test. Attempt the test again, you get +2 skill value for that test. And a copy of Oops. 2 cost to play, 2 combat on commit. Fast, play after you fail a skill test by 2 or less while attacking an enemy engaged with you. Deal this attack's damage to a different enemy at your location. Okay, so that's opening hands. Now we'll take a look at the Act and Agenda decks. So we have a lot of agendas here. We'll start off with Agenda 1A. A Terran Reality. As the train to Dunwich comes to a jarring stop, you look out the window behind you and see an immense tear in the sky, like a rip in a piece of cloth. Several of the rearmost train cars are pulled backwards, and there's a dreadful metallic crunch as they are detached. The train cars topple upwards and into the rift in the sky. Nearby passengers are panicking, others are cowering in their seats, and one elderly man has fainted in fear. Foredoomed to advance that. Then our act. Act 1A. Run! The train has stopped on a bridge high above the Miskatonic River. You might be able to survive the fall, but you don't like your chances. Your best bet is to make your way to the engine car as fast as you can and get the train running again. Objective: if an investigator enters the engine car, immediately advance. Alright, so that's all of that. Last up, Daisy and Stella will move over to the map, and we'll move with them. So what you're actually supposed to do for the map for this scenario, is basically make just a straight line. But for the sake of the shot, I'm going to do it this way instead, where Daisy and Stella are going to start up at this train car location, at the leftmost train. Then they're going to basically snake their way down to the engine car being all the way over here at the very end. But let's take a quick look at the train car. Now, all of the train cars are going to have the same text on the unrevealed side, and it's very sensitive to how the scenario works. Train car is connected to the locations to the left and right of it. You can't enter train car until all of the clues on the location to its left have been discovered. So it's going to be a little convoluted, but basically we can't move to the next location until the clues from each previous location have been discovered. So let's take a look at what we find on the revealed side. Now, if there's a forced effect on here, as part of setup, we're instructed to ignore it. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Shroud of 1, 2 clues. Passenger car is connected to the locations to the left and right of it. Forced. After you enter passenger car, you must either discard a card from your hand with at least one question mark icon or take 1 and 1. So we'll get the 2 clues for that. There we go. Okay, so that should be everything set up now. Let's drop down to Daisy and we'll start in her... Well, I think we'll start here at the map, actually. I actually lied. Action 1 for Daisy is going to be to pay 2 resources to play out her Hawkeye folding camera. We took a look at that from her opening hand earlier, so I won't worry about looking at it again. Action 2, we'll go ahead and investigate up 4. Here's the bag. A well-loved +1 gets her a clue. And then action 3, we'll run that back. A -2 gets her the other clue. And then since it's still during her... Well, before we go into that, we'll also gain a resource... what do I want to use for that? I think I'll just use one of these brass-backed tokens from LCG tokens. So I'll use these as my evidence for today. And then before Daisy's turn ends, she'll have a fast action window to play shortcut, and she'll move up to the next train car right away. So yes, as you can probably tell, we need to keep this scenario moving. But I won't get into that. I'll get into that later. But anyway, what do we find here? Shroud of 3, 4 clues on it. Passenger car is connected to the locations to the left and right. Forced. After you enter passenger car, you must either discard cards from your hand with at least 2 total lore icons or take 2 horror. So I'll get the 4 clues for that. Does Daisy even have... She does have 2 lore icons, but I want to keep them, so... I'm going to take 2 horror. Daisy has a lot of sanity, so she can deal with a lot of that. Anyway, that will do it for Daisy. Stella, unfortunately, I don't think is as lucky on that front. So she'll also move into the passenger car for action 1, when she'll take 2 horror as well. Action 2, I think we're going to play the baseball bat. And I forgot to flip Daisy over. We'll play out the baseball bat, so I have a way to defend. We have a way to defend ourselves. So that was action 2. Action 3. I'll go ahead and play the Raven out, and we'll take a look at the flavor text on there. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven. So that'll cost 1 resource to play. I'll immediately discard it and take a horror, so Stella can pull a clue off that location. If I can never... There we go. I was going to say if I can never get the horror to cooperate. So I'll pull a clue off the location right away. Probably a little dangerous to have Stella taking that much horror right away, but probably not much help for it. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, no enemies in play since it is the first turn of the game after all. So we'll go ahead and re-ready everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Daisy will gain 1 resource and go to 4. Stella will gain 1 resource and go to 3. Daisy will draw. Shriveling, 3 cost to play, combat and commit. Uses 4 charges. As an action, spend 1 charge, fight. Use will instead of combat and deal +1 damage. And if you reveal a bad symbol, take 1 horror. Stella draws. Will to survive, 4 cost to play, combat and agility on commit. Fast to play only during your turn. Don't reveal cast tokens for the next skill test you perform this turn. Alright, so that gives us some options there, but anyway. Mythos phase. First Doom goes up on the agenda. Daisy draws. Helpless Passenger, and it's got Surge. Revelation, put Helpless Passenger into play at your location, at the location to your left, or at your location if you can't. Parlay, as an action, parlay to take control of Helpless Passenger. Forced, if Helpless Passenger leaves play, each investigator takes 1 horror. So basically, it's a 1 horror tax to keep the scenario moving, if we ignore that. But anyway, it did have Surge, so this is still Daisy's card. Daisy draws again. Grappling Horror, 3/3/2. Hunter, while you're engaged with the Grappling Horror, you can't move. 1 and 1. Oh joy. Well, looks like Stella's got something to beat with her baseball bat. Stella draws. Arcane Barrier, attached to your location. As an additional cost to move into or out of attached location, test Will 4. If successful, discard Arcane Barrier. Otherwise, you must either cancel the move or discard the top 5 cards of your deck. Oh joy. Right, so we'll put that there. And that was a very eventful Mythos phase. Anyway, we'll go into the investigation phase next. We'll start with Stella, and we'll start off at her play area. Action 1, Stella is going to engage the Grappling Horror away from Daisy. I do have to remember that friendly fire is a thing in this game, so something to be very careful about. So that was Action 1. Action 2, we'll use the baseball bat to go up 2. And I'll commit Take Heart to this test. This way I either get the 2... I'd rather have the 2 damage, but the 2 resources and 2 cards is a decent consolation prize as well. A 0 gives me 2 damage on the Grappling Horror, and doesn't break the bat, thankfully. Action 3 will run the attack back. Skull is -1, which actually, well, Skull is -X, where X is the current agenda number, so it is 1. The Grappling Horror is dead, but the bat is broken. So we're gonna need to, it looks like we're gonna need to get Stella into her deck before too long to pull one of her other combat options out. But anyway, that will do it for Stella. Daisy's turn will take us to her play area. Action 1 for Daisy is going to be to pay 3 resources to play out her Scroll of Prophecies. So once again, this will have 4 secrets. As an action... Let me bring this into focus a little bit better. There we go. As an action, I can spend 1 secret to choose an investigator at my location to draw 3 cards and discard 1 from their hand. So it was, and so it shall ever be. Then for her tome action, which I also gain, I'll immediately use one of those charges, and I will have... who do I want to have draw? Do I want to have Daisy go into the deck for more clue options, or Stella for another combat option? Daisy's up 2 trying to get clues, so I think... we'll send Stella into her deck. So Stella will draw 3 cards. First up, Stella will draw arm injury. Unfortunately, when I draw a weakness, I can't voluntarily discard it. Now, this is bad coming up this early. Put it into play in your threat area. Arm injury can be healed as if it were a single point of damage on you. If it's healed, discard it. Forced, after you take a fight or activate action, you can't take any of those types of actions for the remainder of the turn. That's bad. Card 2. A Test of Will. Fast, play when an investigator at your location draws a non-weakness treachery card. Test Will 3. If you succeed, cancel it. And... Grit Your Teeth. 1 cost to play, wildcard on commit. Fast, play after you fail a skill test. You get +1 to each of your skills for the remainder of the round. So, I will discard Will to Survive just because because that's a very expensive card. And then Stella ends up with her arm injury in play. Action 2, Daisy will go to work on getting some of those clues. So she'll investigate and she'll commit Eureka to the test to go up 3. And get tentacle touched. Fantastic. Action 3 will run that back, and she is up 2. I was deciding if I wanted to commit something, but I don't. Two tentacles in a row. It better not be one of those days, Daisy. But anyway, yes, that will do it for Daisy in the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Stella managed to kill our only enemy so far. So we'll flip everything over. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Daisy gains 1 resource and goes to 2. Stella gains 1 resource and goes to 4. Daisy draws. Another shortcut, which we're miles away from using right now. Stella draws. Granny Orn, 4 cost to play, will on commit. You get +1 will, and reaction when an investigator at your location would fail a skill test, exhaust Granny Orn. That investigator fails by either 1 less or 1 more. Right, so Mythos phase, we got our second Doom on the agenda. Daisy draws. Good old Ancient Evils. Put 1 Doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance. Dark forces stir against you. If you do not act quickly, a sinister plot will be fulfilled. So we get our third Doom, and then checks the threshold again, which it's still under 4, so we're fine. Stella draws. Push it into the beyond. Choose and shuffle a non-story asset you control into your deck and discard the top 3 cards of your deck. If a copy of that asset is discarded, take 2 horror. Except Stella has no non-story assets, so we're fine there. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase, we'll take Daisy back to her play area. And Daisy, let's get a little less tentacle touched, shall we? Dome action first. We'll send Daisy into her deck this time and see if I can get some more clue options. So 3 cards from the deck. First up, Daisy draws. Drawn to the Flame, that'll be helpful. Draw the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues at your location. Daisy's Tote Bag, also very helpful. 2 costs to play, Will, Lore, and question mark on commit. 2 additional hand slots only for tomes. And I've got a plan. Fight using Lore and deal +1 damage for this attack for each clue you have to a max of +3. So, what do I want to discard? I will discard... let's discard... Oh, this is a tough one. Because Shriveling, I'm actually fighting at a base of 4 right now. 4 Lore, 4 Will, thanks to Hawkeye Folding Camera. Occult Lexicon is always good for testless damage. But I think I'm actually going to discard I've Got a Plan. So action 1, so this is real action 1, we'll run that Investigate back up 2. -1 actually gets her a clue this time. Action 2, I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here, but we need to keep this moving along. So action 2, we are going to play Drawn to the Flame, which will draw me the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. H.P. Lovecraft, The Call of Cthulhu. Daisy draws. Acolyte, spawn any empty location. When it enters play, place a doom on it. So we'll put it on the passenger car and put a doom in play, which means we are advancing well, we were advancing anyway, but... So Daisy gains the last 2 clues off of the location. And then as a fast coming out of that, she's actually going to... Actually, she gets another clue on, or another resource on, another evidence, I should say, on Hawkeye Folding Camera. So there's that going on there. So now we're at a base lore of 6. And then as a fast, Daisy's actually going to try to shortcut over to the next train car. Now the Arcane Barrier test is a Will 4. So she's actually even if I want to commit something to this. And I really... I will commit Daisy's Tote Bag. So I'll put her up 2. -1 gets her over there safely. So actually, we'll move over to the map real quick. The way I've been getting tentacle touched this scenario already, I didn't want to shortcut over to the map right away. Actually, if we're successful, we discard Arcane Barrier, so that'll help Stella out. But anyway, now Daisy moves over to the next train car, and we find Shroud of 2 4 clues. After you enter passenger car, you must either discard cards from your hand with a total of 2 Will icons or take 2 Horror. And Daisy is fresh out of Will icons, so that's another 2 Horror for her. But we'll get her the 4 clues on the location. And then action 3 will be to investigate up 4. A 0 gets her another clue. So that'll do it for Daisy. Stella will action 1 move into the passenger car as well, and I think she's fresh out of... no, actually she's got will icons that she could discard, so she will. So I'll toss a Test of Will and Granny Orn to make sure she doesn't take any horror. Action 2, she'll investigate. She's at even. And I don't think we have any help. No. So yeah, even. +1 gets her a clue. And then action 3 will run the investigate back. -2 does not get her a clue. And I'm not totally bothered about that. So we'll just call it there. I do get her extra action though. So I will use that to run the investigate back. Another -2 still doesn't get her a clue. So now that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, our only enemy is the Acolyte, but he doesn't move. So we'll go ahead and ready everything. And then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. Daisy gains 1 resource, goes to 3. Stella gains 1 resource and goes to 5. Daisy draws. Another Eureka, which we used to failed effect last turn. Stella draws. Neither rain nor snow. 3 cost, 3 wild cards on commit. If the skill test fails, cancel all effects of the failed test. Okay, so another option for a commit. Mythos phase. The agenda does advance. Keep moving. The rearmost car of the train detaches as it is pulled backwards. To your horror, it rises off the tracks and is consumed by the gate above you. Remove the leftmost location from the game, or place it in the victory display if it has victory X and no clues on it. Each investigator at that location is defeated. Each enemy and asset at that location is discarded. Discard all clues controlled by the investigators. Okay, so I'll put that... That's not victory display. I'll put that over here. And then each investigator will take a horror because of the helpless passenger leaving place. So Stella goes up to 4. Daisy goes up to 5. And I've kind of been playing a little bit fast and loose with their sanity in this scenario. But anyway, so those are gone. That connecting arrow can get put away. And then our new agenda... The mall widens. The tear grows larger, and you can feel the rearmost car of the train shaking as it is pulled backwards. The situation threatens to erupt into chaos as more passengers realize the danger they are in. Some passengers are looking for places to hide, while others are running about the compartments in terror, and we need 3 Doom to advance that. So yeah, we definitely need to keep moving. Daisy draws. Obscuring Fog. Revelation attached to your location at limit 1 per location. Attached location gets +2 Shroud, which is now a 4. Forced, after attached location is successfully investigated, discard Obscuring Fog. Stella draws. Another helpless passenger, and it's got Surge, so it goes into the leftmost passenger car. And then for Stella, that will surge into... Wizard of the Order. Oh joy. 4/2/2. Retaliate. Forced. At the end of the Mythos phase, place 1 Doom on Wizard of the Order. Oh, joy. So empty location. I think I'm going to put that in the next location so we can try to deal with him. And then it is the end of the Mythos phase, so we put a Doom on him. He's going to rip us through that next agenda very quickly. But in the investigation phase next, we will go down to Daisy. This could be a problem. Yeah, I think we'll drop down to Daisy and we'll start in her play area. Fortunately, we're investigating at a base 6, so Daisy's up 2. So action 1, she'll do that, and then she'll use Eureka to go up 3. So let me grab the chaos bag right here. -2 gets her a clue. More importantly, it gets us rid of obscuring fog. And I forgot to discard clues controlled by the investigators. So I've got 1 coming back over to Daisy. Which I'll get that, and then I'll get the top 3 cards of her deck for Eureka. So unlike in the situation with when Stella drew her arm injury from Scroll of Prophecies earlier, if I see a weakness in here, I can choose to shuffle it away, and I would. But anyway, card 1. There's Arcane Enlightenment, maximum hand size +1. 1 additional hand slot, which you can only use for a tome. Card 2. Another Arcane Enlightenment. Card 3. Forbidden Tome. I don't like any of these. I mean, the only thing I like is the Arcane Enlightenment is an Arcane Enlightenment for a 2-will commit. So I'll just keep one of those. I'll double back and discard that obscuring fog in a second here. After we get that cut, the obscuring fog is gone. So action 2, we're back down to a shroud of 4, or a shroud of 2, I should say. Let's try to remember how to do first grade math. And then Daisy will investigate from there up 4. -2 gets her the last clue and her last evidence on Hawkeye folding camera. So we'll grab the last evidence for that, which means now Daisy is 5 sanity from being defeated once again. Tome action, I'll use a charge of Scroll of Prophecies to send Stella back into her deck. Because we definitely are going to need combat options to deal with that. Wizard of the Order. Card 1. Look what I found. 2 cost to play, 2 will run commit. Fast, play after you fail a skill test by 2 or less while investigating. Discover 2 clues at your location. Then, another Grit Your Teeth, which I looked at earlier. And a Test of Will. We saw this earlier, but I tossed those so I didn't have to take horror from moving into this train location. Stella will discard. She's going to discard that a Test of Will. And then for action 3, Daisy's going to spend her last 3 resources to play Shriveling. So once again, we've seen this before with Mystics, but we'll take a quick look at it anyway. 3 cost to play, combat on commit, uses 4 charges. As an action, you can spend 1 charge to fight. This attack uses will instead of combat and deals +1 damage. And if you pull a bad symbol during the attack, take 1 horror. So we'll get the 4 charges out for that. Let's put those in the right hand. 4 charges. That'll go there. And then that will do it for Daisy. I think Stella's going to have to move into the next train car and evade that Wizard of the Order until I find more combat options. Plus, I've got to remember that with her arm injury, I need to be looking for a home run, essentially. But I can't take evade. I can take evade actions multiple times with that if I need to, and I might. So for action 1, Stella will move in to the next... Actually, action 1 for Stella will take us over to the map. Now that I'm not being a derp, action 1 will actually move us down to the train car, where Stella will make friends with the Wizard of the Order. And then we'll see... Whoa. Shroud of 1, 6 clues. After you enter passenger car, you must either discard cards from your card with your hand with at least 2 total agility icons, or take 2 damage. That's going to be a big problem for Daisy, because her deck is very lacking on agility cards, and Stella has none at the moment, so she'll be taking 2 damage from that. In action 2, she'll evade... Let me get the 6 clues out for that. 3, 4... There we go. I was looking for... I heard 1 roll out over to one of the other cups that I'm using, but anyway. Then, so that was action 1 to move in. Action 2 will be to evade the Wizard of the Order. She's up 2. +1 gets her away from it. And then action 3, she's going to investigate up 1. Cultist can't be anything good. -1. If you fail and it's your turn, lose all remaining actions and end your turn immediately. Except Stella didn't fail that. So that was her last action. That will do it for Stella, and that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, our only enemy is the Wizard of the Order, but he's evaded. So now we'll re-ready everything. And Daisy's going to be paying a pretty heavy tax on her next turn to move in. But the Wizard of the Order will move to Stella, and then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Daisy will gain 1 resource and go to 1. Stella will gain 1 resource and go to 6. Daisy will draw. Dr. Milan Christopher, where have you been all scenario? 4 cost to play, lore on commit. +1 lore, and after you successfully investigate, gain 1 resource. Stella will draw. Will to survive. 4 cost to play. Fast play only during your turn. Don't reveal cast tokens for the next skill test you perform this turn. And it's a combat and agility on commit. Let me check her hand size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Well, I got to remember too. Our max hand size is 11. But anyway, Mythos phase. We get our first Doom on the agenda, which is actually 2 because of Wizard of the Order. So we do need to be sensitive to ancient evils. Daisy draws. Another arcane barrier. Fantastic. Stella draws. Mysterious chanting. Place 2 doom on the nearest cultist enemy, which is her friend, the Wizard of the Order. I won't bother with if there are no cultist enemies in play, because there is one. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase now. And Daisy will start us off, and her first action will take us over to the map. Action 1, Daisy's going to attempt to move. She's at even, and that's where she's going to stay. I do have an Arcane Enlightenment in my hand, but I'm going to need that for her next action. So at even. But we do get out of there, so we do get to discard the Arcane Barrier. Yeah, successful discard Arcane Barrier. So action 1, she'll move in. Unfortunately taking 2 damage because she has no agility cards in her hand. Action 2, we're going to use a charge of Shriveling against the Wizard of the Order that's engaged with Stella. And she's going to commit Arcane Enlightenment to go up 2. Is Stella going to give her anything? Stella... I really want to make sure this doesn't miss, so I'm going to commit neither rain nor snow to put her up. That puts her up 5, I think. Yeah, because Hawkeye Folding Camera brings her up to a will of 4. Yeah, so she's actually up 5. Up 5 doing 2 damage. I'm really trying not to miss this attack on the Wizard of the Order. A +1 takes out the Wizard of the Order and buys us a couple turns. So we're not just about to advance the agenda. So the Wizard of the Order's toast. Everything goes away. Tome action. I will send... We got a lot of clues that we need to rip off. But I'm going to send Daisy into her deck. Because we need more clues and we need to heal that arm injury off Stella before I plan on using her for combat again. This was not a good scenario for that to come up in. Card 1 is a Dream Diary untranslated. 2 cost to play, will on commit. As an action, search your bonded cards for Essence of the Dream and add it to your hand. Then after you succeed by 3 or more during a skill test to which Essence of the Dream is committed, record in your campaign log that you have interpreted the dreams. Card 2 gets dropped. Let's try this again. Encyclopedia. 2 cost to play, wildcard on commit. Uses 5 secrets. As an action, exhaust Encyclopedia and spend 1 secret. Choose an investigator at your location to get +2 to a skill of your choice until the end of the phase. And another Arcane Enlightenment. That might be handy as a 2 will commit, but I think I've got too many tomes for one thing, but I can swap out the Scroll of Prophecies next turn. I think I'm going to discard the Dream Diary, because that's this deep into a campaign, you really want to have that upgraded already. And then action 3, do we just start working on getting those clues? Or do I plan on pulling resources in? We got to keep this moving, so I think we just go for just go for clues. So Daisy will investigate up 5. Cultist, as we saw earlier, was -1. If you fail and it's your turn, lose all remaining actions and end your turn. Except she doesn't fail, so we get another clue off the location. But that'll do it for Daisy. Stella's turn is going to look very similar. It's going to look very similar to Daisy's last action. We're going to be doing a mess of investigating. So we are up 1 on this first investigate. -2 brings her down to -1, resets her skill to 0, so she fails by 2. The reason that's important is that I'm going to pay 2 resources and show off. Looky what I found! And Stella's going to discover 2 clues at her location anyway. I'm actually starting to kind of like Survivor. Maybe it's just Stella, but seems like making your will on failing tests could be a way to do it. Not one I'm fond of, but it could work. But anyway, that will turn on Stella's fail action, which she'll immediately use to run the investigate back, still up 1. Daisy doesn't have anything she wants to commit, so up 1. -2 unfortunately fails this time. So action 2 will do the investigate again. Stop with the -2, Stella. Run the investigate back again. Tentacle touched. That was a waste of a turn. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Daisy blasted our only enemy in play. So we'll reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Daisy gains 1 resource, goes to 2. Stella gains 1 resource and goes to 5. Daisy draws. Lab Assistant. 2 cost to play, lore on commit. Max hand size is increased by 2. Reaction, after Lab Assistant enters play, draw 2 cards. 1 health, 2 sanity on soak. Stella draws. Another copy of Oops. Which we haven't used yet, surprisingly, but anyway. Mythos phase. Second Doom up on the agenda. Daisy draws. Emergent Monstrosity. Holy criminy. 4/5/3 spawns at the location to your right, or your location if there is no location to your right. Emergent Monstrosity enters play exhausted. The creature erupts from underneath one of the seats, growling ceaselessly in mass and volume, threatening to envelop the entire compartment. Victory 1, 2, and 2. Yikes. Fortunately, it enters play exhausted, so if we can get past it, which we might have to try to do, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Stella draws. Broken Rails. Each investigator at your location loses 1 action. Each investigator at your location with 4 or more damage must also discard an asset he or she controls. Your train car begins to shake and shudder violently back and forth along the tracks, knocking you to the ground. Okay, so neither of them have 4 or more damage on them, but they both lose an action this turn, which that is very is that very unfortunate? That is definitely unfortunate, but anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase, Daisy will take us down to her play area. Daisy's just going to muscle those 2 clues off the location. She's up 5, trying to do it. Got it, and Elder Sign is thankfully not a tentacle this time, so +0. If you succeed, draw a card for each tome you control. So Daisy gets both clues off of there, and she gets to draw a card for her Scroll of Prophecies. Because I still haven't replaced it yet, but Daisy draws. Another copy of Milan, which she doesn't really need here, but she does get another evidence on her Hawkeye folding camera, but 3 is all that's relevant. We'll still put it up there anyway. But that will do it for Daisy. Stella's turn is going to take us down to her play area. As I was moving the camera over to Stella's play area, I was briefly debating heading over to the map instead and trying to get past that Emergent Monstrosity. But there's way too high a likelihood of that location having either having clues on it or some other effect that forces us to stop there. Which means we're going to have to deal with that monstrosity anyway. So, although an evade of 3, Stella would be up 1 trying to evade it, but I think we're going to just stick together. So for action 1, Stella's going to draw a card. Stella will draw. Really, Stella? Called by the Mists, her character weakness. Revelation, put Called by the Mists into play in your threat area. Forced, after you initiate a skill test with a difficulty of 4 or higher, take 1 damage. 2 actions to discard it. Fantastic. Then action 2 will run the draw back. So let's try this again. Stella draws. Another neither rain nor snow, so that's moderately more useful. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. We'll go ahead and flip that over. Enemy phase, the Emergent Monstrosity is not a hunter, thankfully, and was exhausted anyway. But we'll get everything ready here. We'll get the action tokens reset, get all the actions back to full strength, and then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Daisy will gain 1 resource and go to 3. Stella will gain 1 resource and go back to 6. Daisy draws. St. Hubert's Key, 4 cost to play. Will on commit. You get +1 will, +1 lore, and -2 sanity. When you would be defeated by horror, discard St. Hubert's Key to immediately heal 2 horror. Stella draws. An 18 Derringer, level 2. 2 cost to play, combat and agility on commit. Uses 3 ammo. As an action, spend 1 ammo to fight. You get +2 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. If you fail, place 1 ammo on 18 Derringer, and the next time you trigger this ability this round, you get an additional +1 combat for this attack. So that is something we very much needed. But anyway, moving into the Mythos phase next, we do advance the agenda. Don't stop. The next train car is ripped backwards with violent force. A middle-aged man hangs from his fingertips as the car flies unhindered towards the rift. In moments, the car is consumed whole, and the man lets go rather than be pulled into the void. He starts to fall, but it was caught by the rift's force and pulled inside it anyway. Remove the leftmost location from the game, or place it in the victory display if it has victory X and no clues on it. Each investigator at that location is defeated, and each enemy and asset at that location is discarded. Discard all clues controlled by the investigators. So since I forgot this last time, thankfully I didn't resolve anything that involved having clues, but still, I'll do that first. Okay, and then the leftmost location leaves play. And from losing another helpless passenger, we take another horror. So, kind of reminding me a little bit of an incident back when I was younger, where my sister was playing, just slight minor aside, kind of a little funny moment, but anyway. My sister was playing Medal of Honor Underground this one time, and there's a mission in there, I think it's actually a stated objective in the first level, I want to say, where you're told to protect brother. And the way she protected brother in that scenario was to shoot him in the back of the head. So just kind of reminded me of that a little bit, because we're basically doing the same thing over here. We're basically not really protecting the passengers. In my defense, though, as you've seen as we've advanced the agendas, we really need to keep this scenario moving. But anyway, I'm getting a little off track. Coming back to our agenda. Agenda 3A, rolling backwards. The pull of the rift in the sky seems to grow stronger, and the entire train begins to roll backwards along the tracks. The The rearmost cars of the train begin to rattle, the force of the rift threatening to detach them. You must get out of these cars as fast as you can, foredoomed to advance that. Fantastic. Right, so Daisy draws. Claws of Steam. Revelation test Will 3. If you fail, take 2 damage and you can't move from this location this round. Damage from this effect must be assigned to your assets first if able. Oh no. Fortunately, Daisy's up 1, but if she fails, she's defeated by damage, so she would take a physical trauma. So I think she's up 1 right now. I'm going to commit Arcane Enlightenment to put her up 3. I wanted to use that on the Monstrosity, but this is just going to defeat her if I fail this. So she's up 3. Elder Sign, as we saw earlier, is +0. If you succeed, draw a card for each tome you control. So Daisy is successful, and she gets to draw a card. So she will draw Amnesia. This was her tower weakness. Choose and discard all but 1 card from your hand. Wait, where am I? What was I doing? Not a good question to be asking, Daisy. So I think it's going to be the Occult Lexicon, because I'm going to need I'm going to need some test list damage when I move in to try to work on that monstrosity. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Stella draws another Acolyte, so spawn at an empty location. We'll put it at that train location and place a Doom on it. I don't think we actually looked at Acolytes. Let's take a quick look. 3-1-2, Humanoid Cultist, spawn at any empty location. Forced, after Acolyte enters play, place 1 Doom on it. It was only a small sacrifice, does 1 damage. So we're putting it at the train car before the engine car. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase, we'll start with Stella, and we'll start in her play area. Action 1 for Stella. She'll pay 2 resources. And where is it? Ah, here we are. Play out the 18 Derringer. So we looked at that when we drew it for her turn. We'll get the 3 ammo for it. There we go. And then action 2 will take us over to the map. Action 2 will see Stella move into the next train car. She'll make friends with the Emergent Monstrosity. And then we'll find Shroud of 2, no clues. Dining car is connected to the locations to the left and right of it. Forced, after you reveal dining car, search the encounter deck and discard pile for a Grappling Horror and spawn it. Oh joy. So I don't think we have a Grappling Horror in the... Let me look. I don't think we have one in the discard pile. Nope. So we've got to go to the encounter deck to find one. Let me see. Okay. We only have the 1? Right. Well, I found one anyway, so we'll give this a quick shuffle. This angle is very awkward, but it can't be helped. We'll give that a cut. We'll take a look at the Grappling Horror before it makes friends with Stella. 3-3-2. While you are engaged with Grappling Horror, you can't move. Right. So, what do we do with Action 3? I think Action 3 would try to evade the monstrosity. Yeah, we try to evade the monstrosity. And I will commit... We're up 1 right now. I will commit... I'll commit a Grit Your Teeth to put her up 2. -1 gets her away from the monstrosity, so we don't take... So unfortunately, Stella's stuck at the dining car, but she's also out of actions. Daisy, I think we're going to stay right here at the map. So action 1, she's going to move to the dining car. The question is, do I try to send her on, or do I have her stop and help Stella out? Daisy can probably take out that acolyte with a charge of shriveling. She's fighting at a base... She's fighting at a base of 4 right now. So... yeah, I think we send her on. After for action 2, we play out her copy of Occult Lexicon, finally replacing the scroll of Prophecies. So we'll go get her copies of Bloodright. There we are, we'll put those into the deck. And then we'll take a quick look at Bloodright before we shuffle the deck. So, Lore, Will, Combat on Commit. Draw 2 cards, then discard up to 2 cards from your hand. For each card you discard this way, you may either gain a resource or spend a resource to deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. Does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So we'll go ahead and shuffle the other 2 cards into the deck. We have 2 copies of Bloodright. This is one, as you can see, this is one scenario where Daisy has not been able to get her resource generation going. So she's been basically starved for resources, but getting a little bit ahead of myself there. So that was action 2. I don't think we want to end with an enemy anyway, so I think for action 3... she is going to... we're going to try to take that monstrosity out. No, she's actually going to draw a card. So Daisy will draw. Higher Education. Will, 0 cost to play. Will and Lore on Commit. Well, you have 5 or more cards in your hand. It's basically a resource dump for Will and Lore tests. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Stella does take 1 and 1 from the Grappling Horror. Thankfully, she managed to evade the Emergent Monstrosity. Otherwise, she would have been defeated by Sanity, most likely, on this turn. But anyway, that will do it for the enemy phase. So the Emergent Monstrosity does come back and make friends with Stella. It didn't have any prey instructions on it, so I can choose which investigator I want that to go to. Anyway, we'll ready everything up here. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Daisy will gain 1 resource and go to 2. Stella will gain 1 resource and go to 5. Daisy will draw. Another Drawn to the Flame, which we really don't need right now, but we might at the next location. Stella will draw. Rabbit's Foot. 1 cost to play, wild card on commit. After you fail a skill test, exhaust Rabbit's Foot to draw 1 card. I don't think she'll be playing that right now, because she would be defeated for sure. But anyway, Mythos phase. We got our first Doom on the agenda, except we're at 2 because of the Acolyte. Daisy draws. Pushed into the Beyond. Oh joy. Choose and shuffle a non-story asset you control into your deck and discard the top 3 cards of your deck. If a copy of that asset is discarded, take 2 horror. Oh, that's bad. Well, I think I'm going to have to shuffle the Occult Lexicon in, which will take the copies of Bloodright out of my deck. Bloodright and Bloodright. And we'll shuffle that in. I'll move those blood rights back to my bonded cards in a second, but... Fortunately, I only run Occult Lexicon as a one-of, so hopefully there won't be much chance of getting it revealed here. I do get rid of both my other weaknesses, so that's a very good thing. And that's a situation where if it tells you to discard them and you see weaknesses, you can send them to go bye-bye, which that is very welcome. So the Necronomicon and Chronophobia will now not be problems for Daisy. Stella will draw. Broken Rails. Oh joy. Each investigator at your location loses an action. Each investigator at your location with 4 or more damage must also discard an asset he or she controls. And our train car begins to shake and shudder violently, back and forth along the tracks, knocking you to the ground. So yeah, each investigator loses an action, which is probably not the most catastrophic thing in the world, but it could be for Stella, potentially. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, though. Anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase next now, and we'll see if Stella can get out of this round as we start at her play area. That Emergent Monstrosity is going to tear us to pieces if we can't evade it, so action 1 will be to try to evade it, and I'll commit... Actually, I'm going as a fast action before I do that. I'm going to pay 4 resources and play Will to Survive. So play only during your turn. Don't reveal cast tokens for the next skill test you perform. Actually, do I just get... That would be a risky play to get Stella taken out and have Daisy try to finish the scenario. It is worth a shot, though, because that Emergent Monstrosity isn't a hunter. So, let me explain what I'm looking at doing here. It's probably a waste, but... evade the Grappling Horror so I can move. Initiate the move, take the attack of opportunity that wipes Stella out. And then have Daisy try to finish the scenario. She does have a Shriveling in play, and she's attacking at a base 4, so it's not a completely crazy idea. And Stella has not taken any trauma yet this campaign, so it might be worth a shot. This is a tough one. I'm actually going to take a small break while I think about it. I'll be right back. I actually needed to take a small break anyway, so this worked out nicely. The problem is we have 2 actions this turn. We have only 2 actions this turn, so... And if I can't get... The Grappling Horror is a hunter, so if I can't get Daisy 2 locations in front of it, then the sacrifice would be for nothing. Because there are way too many ways that last train car before the engine car can stop Daisy cold. So I think we're going to take the safe play here. I'm going to evade the Emergent Monstrosity for Stella's action 1 and try to take the Grappling Horror out using the 18 Derringer. So we'll do that. And she's up. She gets +2. She'll be up 3. Right? No, she'll be up 2. Yes. And we'll commit Rabbit's Foot to put her up 3. -2 puts 2 damage on the Grappling Horror. Unfortunately, Stella is stuck, so she won't be able to... She can take 1 attack from the Grappling Horror, but she can't survive the second one. But anyway, after a long deliberation, that will do it for Stella's turn. Daisy's turn will take us over to the map. Now we can actually move everything up a little bit now that the map is much compressed from what we had earlier. Action 1, Daisy is going to move over to the next train car and make friends with the Acolyte. And she'll find Shroud of 4, 2 clues. Oh dear. Forced. After you enter passenger car, you must either discard cards from your hand with at least 2 total combat icons or take 2 damage. Well, that plan kind of blew up in my face a little bit. So Daisy actually ends up defeated by damage, and her sacrifice, and Stella's sacrifice would have been for nothing anyway. So Daisy is defeated and takes her second physical trauma of the campaign. So that is very unfortunate. So that'll be 2. So that will do it. That was a very short investigation phase for Daisy. Enemy phase, Stella takes the aforementioned 1-1. So yeah, she's in very rough shape. In fact, she's probably going to bite at this turn. Although she might be able to survive it. But anyway, that will do it for the like I said, that'll do it for the enemy phase. So everything will make friends with Stella. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Stella will gain 1 resource and go to 2, and then draw. Old Keyring. Shroud of 1 cost to play, lore on commit. Uses 2 keys. If there are no keys on Old Keyring, discard it. As an action, investigate. Your location gets -2 Shroud for this investigation. If you succeed, remove 1 key from Old Keyring. Probably not something we're using until later. Mythos phase, second doom on the agenda, but we're at 3 total. And Stella will draw. Terror from Beyond. Uh-oh. Peril, Revelation, choose one of the following card types: asset, event, or skill. Each player must discard each card in his or her hand that is of the chosen card type. This is not the first copy of Terror from Beyond drawn this phase. Choose 2 card types instead. So Stella will choose assets, because the Old Keyring isn't particularly useful right now. And it's not even my pressing concern right now. But anyway, we're into the investigation phase now. So we'll actually just stay right here. I also just checked Daisy didn't have any clues to drop at her location. So anyway, action 1 for Stella will be to evade, and I've got to evade both of these or else the scenario is just over. So I'll start with the Grappling Horror. I'm up 2. Cultist, as we saw earlier, was -1. If you fail and it's your turn, lose all remaining actions and end your turn immediately. Except she was up 1. Except she was up 2, so that passes. Action 2 will evade the Emergent Monstrosity. And I'll commit neither rain nor snow. Just to make sure I don't have any... Well, yeah, we'll go up 4 on this. This is probably overkill, but... Come on. There we go. A well-loved -2 gets her away from the Emergent Monstrosity. And then action 3 will bring us over to the map. Unfortunately, we may be slamming into a wall here because that Shroud of 4 is going to be tough for Stella to overcome. Action 3, she'll move into the passenger car and make friends with the Acolyte. Normally, you don't want to do this, where you don't want to move into a location with an enemy at it with no actions remaining. But given the location I left, and the fact that Stella can actually take damage at a decent clip, I figured that was probably the better option of the two. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Stella will then take a damage from the Acolyte. Then we'll re-ready everything. And then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. Oop. As those actually ready, so now we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. Stella will gain 1 resource and go to 3, and then draw. Rabbit's Foot. We saw this earlier. 1 cost to play, wildcard on commit. Reaction, after you fail a skill test, exhaust Rabbit's Foot, draw 1 card, and it takes your accessory slot. Anyway, Mythos phase. The agenda does advance. It's getting faster. 2 of the train cars closest to the gate are severed from the rest of the train by a sheet of impossibly hot steam, which slices through metal like a knife through butter. The cars are sucked upwards and fly into the gate. Something above the train lets out a terrible screech, though to your ears it is like the shrill sound of a broken steam pipe. Remove each of the 2 leftmost locations from the game, or place in the victory display if either one has victory X and no clues on it. Each investigator at those locations is defeated, each enemy and asset at those locations is discarded, and discard all clues controlled by the investigators. So those 2 go away. So yeah, we lose those. Then we'll take a look at our new agenda. Agenda 4A, drawn in. The gate crackles with power as its strength increases. Dirt and rocks from the edge of the bridge behind you are torn from the ground, and trees are uprooted, pulled in by the gate. 1 younger passenger smashes the window of your car and shouts, "We gotta get out of here!" He leaps out of the window, but before he lands in the river below, he is snatched in the talons of a swift-flying creature and carried out of sight. A trail of steam is left in the creature's wake. 3 doomed to advance that. Stella will then from the Mythos deck, Stella will draw. Claws of Steam. Revelation test will 3. If you fail, take 2 damage, and you can't move from this location this round. Damage from this effect must be assigned to your assets first if able. Oh joy. Well, we'll commit the Rabbit's Foot to go up 1. Elder Sign. Her Elder Sign is +1. You may instead choose to automatically fail this skill test to heal 1 damage and 1 horror. Healing 1 and 1 would net me lose 1 damage, heal 1 horror. And by lose, I mean I would be taking an extra damage from that. I think... Well, we're probably not moving anyway. So I think we just take the... Oh, that grappling horror is going to come in and kill us this round, most likely. Oh, right. Well, I think the only way we do this is I think, as crazy as this sounds, so that we can take the horror from the grappling horror moving in, we actually fail the test. So we'll net healing a horror and taking another damage. We most likely weren't leaving anyway. So that kind of works out, but that also gives me Stella's extra action. So, also as a fast, I will pay 1 resource to play Grit Your Teeth, which means I'm doing everything at +1 skill value for the round. So that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase now, we'll just stay right here with Stella. So the fail action will be a shot with the 18 Derringer. She's up 3, with Grit Your Teeth giving her a base of 4, plus 2 from the Derringer giving her 6. So she's up 3. -3 means Cultist, means Acolyte go bye-bye. Then actual action 1. Oh, that's a Shroud of 4? Gross. I think we're going to take 2 actions to discard Called by the Mist. So I can work on investigating, because I don't want to initiate a skill test with a difficulty of 4 or higher, and that Shroud is a 4. If I take the investigation, then that Grappling Horror comes in and kills me during the enemy phase, so that's a bad plan. Then action 3 will investigate... I don't like investigating down 1. I'm hoping for a pull. I think that's a dangerous play, but I think we're kind of stuck. A 0 is not going to work here. Because remember, we were down 1 and hoping for a pull. But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the Grappling Horror comes in, makes friends with Stella, and hits her for 1 and 1. So she is 1 damage and 1 sanity away from being defeated by either one. That's sanity, there it goes. So we'll go ahead and ready everything, and since we're already basically up top, I think this will probably be the last shot that we keep. So we're into the upkeep phase next. Stella will gain a resource and go to 3. And then she'll draw. Look what I found. We could use this, actually. Fast, play after you fail a skill test by 2 or less while investigating to discover 2 clues at your location. Hopefully we can make that work, but anyway. Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda goes up to 1, and then Stella draws. Broken Rails, oh boy. Revelation, each investigator at your location loses 1 action, so Stella loses an action. And she's got 4 more damage on her, so she also has to discard an asset she controls. That is not good. So we have to discard the 18 Derringer. That is very unfortunate. But anyway. So we're into the investigation phase now. Stella will start by trying to punch the Grappling Horror, and she'll commit Oops to go up 2. I think I'll commit both copies of it and go up 4. Because we are in Agenda 4A right now. And before I reveal this token, I will be right back. Had to change out the battery, but to reset the scene, we're potentially killing, we're trying to punch the Grappling Horror. This pull will have a lot to do with whether or not the scenario just ends this turn. A 0 means we do take out the Grappling Horror, thankfully. Okay. So that was action 1. Action 2, we will investigate down 2. I've got a little bit of a plan here, but I feel like at this point I'm just waiting for the end. It's kind of the impression I'm getting here. A 0 means I fail, but I will play Live and Learn. So I can play it as a fast. After a skill test I failed ends after resolving all effects of the failed test. Attempt it again and I get +2 skill value for the test. So now I'm investigating it even. Oh boy, this is bad. This plan kind of blew up in my face because Skull is minus X, where X is the current agenda, and it is Agenda 4. So yeah, that plan did not work at all. Whoop. I wish armor injury went away, but alas it does not. So I will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the Emergent Monstrosity is still not a hunter, which means we'll ready everything back up. And then we'll move right into the upkeep phase, where Stella will gain 1 resource and go to 4. And then she'll draw Granny Orn again. Well, we might be playing her, but anyway. Mythos phase, Doom goes up to 2, and then Stella draws. Ancient Evils, which cues the advance on the agenda, which might actually just end the scenario, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. Nowhere is safe. The 2 rearmost train cars begin to melt as they are filled with superheated steam. The metal warps and the passengers inside scream in agony. The cars are ripped from the train tracks along with rail slats and chunks of the bridge behind you. Remove each of the 2 leftmost locations from the game, or place in the victory display if either one has victory X and no clues on it. Each investigator at these locations is defeated. Each enemy and asset at those locations is discarded, and discard all clues controlled by the investigators. Unfortunately, the 2 leftmost locations, Stella was trapped in that last passenger car. That Shroud of 4 really came in to bite us. So anyway, Stella is defeated as well. So let's move back up top to resolve the scenario. Alright, so both investigators were defeated, so we start at Investigator Defeat.
Before resolving any other resolution, if at least one investigator was defeated, the defeated investigators read Investigator Defeat first. Investigator Defeat. Your experience beyond the gate is simultaneously terrifying and impossible to recall with clarity. A hypnotic spectacle of lights, otherworldly sensations, and altered geometry dances at the tattered edges of your mind. As an unearthly voice rings from beyond rings in your ears, its significance an enigma. When you awaken, you find yourself in the woods, several miles from the Miskatonic River. Destroyed train cars surround you. They are crumpled as if from a severe impact. They are also decayed as if years of rust and squalor have claimed them. There is no sign of the other passengers. Each investigator who was defeated has acquired the across space and time weakness and must add 1 copy of it to his or her deck. This card does not count toward that investigator's deck size.
So let's take a quick look at across time and space before we continue the resolution. This will be going into both Daisy and Stella's decks, and I don't know why I gave them extra sleeves, because they've got the extra Tower 16 weaknesses that are both coming out of their decks. So I'll just use those sleeves to swap those in. But anyway. Alright, so across space and time. Revelation, discard the top 3 cards of your deck. What happened on the other side? So I'll go ahead and find Daisy's Amnesia. There we are. And Stella's arm injury really hurt. So yeah, that was a very bad flip on the Tower 16, but alas, you won't know that until it happens. But anyway, proceed. I said, there we go.
The investigator who was defeated earns 1 bonus experience as his or her experience beyond the gate grants them insight into the cosmos. If an investigator with the
Okay, so pause that for a second. So we do surprisingly pick up an experience, even though this scenario is probably one of the most stingy with experience that I've seen yet in the campaign. But once again, continue.
Olas Warmius translation in his or her deck was defeated, and your campaign log record that the Necronomicon was stolen. The Necronomicon Olas Warmius translation must be removed from that investigator's deck. If an investigator with the deck...
Remember that we destroyed the Necronomicon in the last scenario at the Miskatonic Museum. Proceed.
Armitage card, the Professor Warren Rice card, or the Dr. Francis Morgan card in his or her deck was defeated. In your campaign log, records that the character in question was kidnapped. The associated card must be removed from that investigator's deck. If no resolution was reached, each investigator was defeated. Go to Resolution 2.
Before we go to Resolution 2, here's Dr. Henry Armitage from Daisy's deck. And now he's out of the deck. So he's been kidnapped. But anyway, moving on to Resolution 2. It should be this one right here.
Resolution 2.
Yep.
Read Investigator Defeat first. Rattled, you begin walking alongside the train tracks, making your way towards Dunwich. In your campaign log, record that the investigators were delayed on their way to Dunwich. Each investigator earns experience equal to the Victory X value of each card in the Victory display.
Alright, so the investigators were delayed on their way to Dunwich. Okay, so we picked up one experience. Daisy picked up another physical trauma. So I'm already starting to get very watchful on my house rule for trauma, especially if Daisy picks up another physical trauma. If Daisy picks up another physical trauma next week, I might probably wrap the spring campaign early, because as we've seen, there are plenty of enemies that can deal 2 damage in 1 attack, but I'll see how the scenario plays out. But in any event, that will do it for the Essex County Express. Later this week we'll upgrade the decks, then Sunday we'll continue the spring campaign with the next scenario, Blood on the Altar. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.